Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Looking at the hazardous weather graphic, we've got a couple of highlighted areas here, notably the red zone there. That's a warning. That's a freeze warning there for the northern panhandle for tonight, I believe after midnight until early tomorrow morning. And that's for the wind-sheltered areas, due to clear skies and northerly winds that pulled some dry air down out of Canada. And so those areas are expected to drop into the 20s tonight, again after midnight, and then just south of there, frost advisories out for the central areas of the southeast coast in the yellow shaded area there away from the coast. And that's for temperatures dropping maybe down to 30, 31 or 2 degrees during the same time period. Moving on to satellite imagery. Clear skies there across the southeast coast today of sunshine. That'll allow temperatures in some areas rise into the, well, as high as the mid-60s. Otherwise, a lot of clouds now moved on into southern Alaska, spreading eastward to the border, northward across Fairbanks. Beginning to break out, at least on the higher clouds here over the southwest, with the system moving in and weakening, holding together better up here across the Seward Peninsula to the northwest coast. And a pretty nice day there for the North Slope on out to the Arctic coast, although easterly winds of 20 to as high as 35 miles an hour on the central coast, with a still breezy off to the east there. That kept temperatures lower to mid-30s this afternoon. And you can see some clouds just off to the north there that may probably will drop down tonight, bring maybe some light mixed precipitation to the central coast eastward to Demarcation Point. Out over the Bering Sea, some clouds here just grazing the Pribilof Island, St. Paul. They had about 3/100 of an inch earlier today of precipitation, very light. Otherwise, not much going on out here over the Aleutians or the Bering Sea. On the chart, trough right through here, that brought some areas of light rain in this area here back up to the Seward Peninsula, mostly north of the coast there, where Nome had about 7/100, and I think a couple of the inland areas picked up maybe 1/1500 of an inch. And that same amount also occurred at Bethel with 14/100 of an inch of precipitation today. Unalakleet about the same amount. With this system moving eastward here, a couple of weak lows and the dissipating front brought some moisture here to south central Alaska. The heaviest amount was at Kenai with 14/100 of an inch today. And then the south coast of the Seward Peninsula had just under 1/2 inch, but that's in a very wet prone area there. Otherwise, amounts less than 1/10 of an inch at Seward. And some showers got into the Copper River Basin, Gulf Canacine, 1/100 of an inch of precipitation. And also north of the Alaska Range, Fairbanks picked about 2/100 of an inch. And then that dries out, didn't get much farther north than that. We'll see for forecast for tonight. Stays clear for the cold temperatures, or the dropping in the 20s in the north. And you can see not much of a gradient, so the wind-sheltered areas could be quite a few of them in the area there, with the frost advisories in the central southeast coast. Still have this front here, very weak, a narrow band of light precipitation with it, mostly southern Cook Inlet, Fognac Island into the western Gulf, and then areas of light precipitation back to the northwest along the frontal boundary. Winds not significant with this at all, and still a little brisk along the Arctic coast there out of the east. Probably maybe see about what you saw today, diminishing slowly. Probably will lose a 35-mile-an-hour wind gust, but with that comes that little bit of moisture for some possible light snow or mixture of drizzle, flurries, that sort of thing, with no accumulations central and east side. Another trough coming across, westerly flow on the north side of this 1,030 millibar high will bring another round of IFR, fog, low clouds, drizzle from the Pribilofs right up Nunivak Island, coming onshore to the Yukon Delta coast, back across St. Lawrence Island, trailing off into the western Aleutians. Otherwise, not too bad. Dade, Akanatka, not much change from what you saw today, as well as the Alaska Peninsula, with possible drizzle on the north side on the north shores. And moving on to the forecast for tomorrow, Monday. That trough moves inland to about this position here, quite weak. Still some moisture possible with that on the light variety, with mostly cloudy skies down to possibly Kodiak Island, across the central northern Kuskokwim Valley, back to the northwest coast. Stays a little bit more organized up there, but even that's not all that great. And an even weaker one keeps the clouds, drizzle, and lower flying conditions into the Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, back into the Chukchi Sea, with that same pattern extending all across the Bering here. High pressure a little closer to the Adak-Atka area there. So look for some possible clearing here for the eastern Aleutians, south side of the Alaska Peninsula, and then southerly flow will keep IFR out west there with the warm front moisture way out there to the west. And for the Panhandle, again, mostly sunny, high pressure just south of or west of Elephant Cove. Mostly sunny skies there for the southeast coast yet again tomorrow after the chilly morning. Low clouds and fog. Eastern Arctic coast possible right along the coastline there. And then this system down here will organize and move eastward, and that'll probably nudge some showers, clouds followed by showers into the southern southeast coast. Heidelberg, maybe Klawock, Metlakatla, those areas, with clouds a little farther to the north, staying dry and mostly sunny farther to the north there, over to about Yakutat, maybe Cordova. And we still have a trough keeping it cloudy and unsettled over south central Alaska. Back to the northwest once again to that weak 1013 millibar low, with drier conditions to the northeast. High pressure right over the eastern Aleutians there, so maybe a risk of some sunshine there for those areas, Alaska Peninsula, and also south of the Alaska Range. This trough, once again, keeps it unsettled, as I mentioned, due to this trough coming into south central Alaska. A stronger system out to the west, increase in the wind and rain out there, but that'll stay west of Adak through the afternoon Tuesday. And for lows tonight, 25 to 30, call it, from the eastern interior right up to the eastern Arctic coast. 40s on out to the west into the northern Bering Sea. And again, 20s and 30s here over the central northern Panhandle, lower 40s down to the south. And for the highs tomorrow, back into the maybe lower 60s here, maybe lower to mid 60s, like Big Lake had 64 this afternoon. Could see that again tomorrow. And down over the Panhandle, highs in the 50s to lower, maybe mid 60s once again, lower 60s Bristol Bay, and mid to upper 30s central eastern Arctic coast, warmer to the west, 50s out over the Aleutians and the Pribilofs. Lows the following morning, about the same, really not much difference, although milder there for the Panhandle, especially south with the clouds rolling in. And 40s, 30s, upper 30s, 40s, much of the interior, chillier up there to the northeast. Highs the following afternoon, back into the lower to mid 60s, possibly Kenai Peninsula and up into the Susitna, Matanuska Valley for the most part. Near 60 for Bristol Bay, otherwise in the 50s. Highs mid to upper 30s there for the Arctic coast, 40s over the North Slope area, and back into the 50s to lower 60s for much of the Panhandle, while out west, 50s, mid 50s for Adak and Atka.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic here. A lot of IFR here from the western Aleutians, southern Bering Sea, east-northeastward to the Yukon Delta coast, Nunivak Island, Pribilofs, all the way up to the eastern side of St. Lawrence Island. Marginal VFR well inland into the interior, eastward across Copper River Basin, and even some down across Kodiak Island, Kenai Peninsula. IFR marginal conditions, central eastern Arctic coast, North Slope, and VFR once again for the North Gulf Coast here about Cordova all the way down to Dixon Entrance. Afternoon, no change in that pattern here for that area. Marginal VFR in the Copper River Basin and mostly around the Matanuska Susitna Valley up toward the Alaska Range. So it'll be northern Susitna Valley on up and the White Mountain areas there. Back to the west, a lot more widespread and in coverage there, except northeast Bristol Bay and into possibly the southeast side of the Kuskokwim Valley. Otherwise, marginal VFR, eastern Bering Sea, Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, IFR, south central Bering, Adak, Atka, tapering off out towards Shemya, and then along the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. For the Tuesday morning, big batch out here over the southern Bering Sea, central Aleutians, with a narrow band along the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, But northeast Bristol Bay, partly king salmon, Dillingham, VFR, Togiak, marginal VFR, IFR spot in areas here over the west. VFR, North Slope Brooks Range, marginal VFR now in areas with some spotty IFR, mainly over the mountainous terrain, south central Alaska. It stays VFR across the panhandle. And then for Tuesday afternoon, the IFR up here to start the day over the central Arctic coast burns off, retreats back to the northwest. VFR for the afternoon there into the down toward the Yukon River. Then marginal VFR south of the Yukon Flats down into the Alaska Range. A little bit better here for the Copper River Basin. Southeast coast, still VFR for another day. And Kodiak Island, marginal, mostly along the east coast there. Less IFR out over the Bering Sea, but still pretty widespread on the marginal stuff. And for passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, VFR once again for both those passes. But Lake Clark and Merrill, call it marginal at times throughout the day tomorrow. And for rainy, starting out IFR and then becoming marginal probably by mid to late morning. And windy, same trend, IFR becomes marginal. And Isabel, occasionally marginal. Mentasta, marginal VFR becomes better in the afternoon. And for Tanita, marginal VFR at times throughout the day, and probably be close to that upper threshold there for the category. Portage, marginal. And for Chilkoot and White, chalk up another VFR day for those two passes. And for the freezing levels, still have some upper ridging right through here with a couple of weak disturbances, but really no effect on this chart. 6,000 feet over the eastern interior, the colder, chillier air still off into Canada. And up to the north there toward Banks Island, 8,000 feet here along the Aleutians, and a cool pocket there over the central Bering Sea at about 6,000. And for icing conditions, maybe some areas of possibly above 7,000 feet of mostly light rime icing. I don't think moderate will be in the picture at all tomorrow for any of these three areas I have marked. A little lower in the elevation here, some cooler air above about 5,000 here. Looks like the Denali area back to the northwest, another band possibly. Could see some icing possibilities there, Norton Sound up into the Chukchi Sea, mostly off the northwest coast. And the jet stream still ridging, kind of weak in this area, but pretty much holding. A couple of disturbances here as I put kinks in the flow lines there, but it extends all the way up to the Arctic, upper level low, east of the Panhandle. So kind of still this blocking pattern holding in place, at least through tomorrow. And then for 9,000 feet, real light divergent flow coming onto the west coast here. This branch 15 to 25 in the northwest. The other one 20 to 30 out of the south, and then basically high pressure over the Copper River Basin. That results in really light winds over the interior, as well as the Panhandle and the Gulf of Alaska. Same pattern, 3,000 feet, about 10 knots for the Panhandle, light 5 to maybe 15 over the interior. Westerlies 15 to 20 across the Bering Sea, turn northwest, kicking up to maybe 20 knots there south of the peninsula to Kodiak Island. Turbulence-wise, the only area, eastern and central Arctic coast, maybe some light to isolated mod chop for small aircraft there. That'll all be below 4,000 feet. And after the break, I will return with a look at the marine forecast and some other information.
Can be many miles long, from 1 to 100 feet high, traveling at 400 miles per hour. This ocean monster is known as a tsunami, and it can wreak havoc on coastal populations and landscapes. A tsunami is a series of ocean waves caused by any large and sudden disturbance of the sea surface. Tsunamis can be generated by landslides, volcanic eruptions, or even meteorite impacts in the ocean. But they are most often caused by an earthquake where there's a sudden displacement of the ocean floor. When that happens, there's a transfer of energy from the sea floor to the ocean, causing waves on the surface to radiate outward in all directions. In deep waters, these waves may not even be detectable. But when the tsunami enters shallower waters, the wave speed slows and its height increases. The water along the coast may recede noticeably. A large wall of turbulent water, called a bore, may also form. When the tsunami hits, it may come ashore like a fast-rising flood and strike with devastating force. The series of waves may continue for hours, but first one may not be the last or the largest. For your safety, know the potential warning signs of an incoming tsunami. A strong earthquake that causes difficulty standing. A rapid rise or fall of the water along the coast. A loud ocean roar. When you're in a coastal area, it's important to keep alert for messages from local officials, such as lifeguards, police, the U.S. Tsunami Warning Centers, and NOAA All Hazards Radio. If you find yourself in a location of a tsunami strike, here's what you need to do to stay safe. Keep calm. Walk or run to higher ground, 100 feet above sea level or 1 mile inland. Do not drive. Keep roads open for emergency vehicles. If you cannot move to higher ground, use the stairs to get to the 3rd floor or higher in a sturdy building. Follow all instructions from local officials and stay out of coastal areas until authorities issue an all clear. Tsunamis can strike any coastline in the world and can affect locations thousands of miles away from where they formed. They may be uncommon, but the devastation they cause makes them a deadly force in nature. For more information on tsunamis, go to the following sites.
Tsunami, a killer wave, speeding across the ocean at 400 miles an hour. It smashes into land, destroying everything in its path. Tsunamis do not have a season, but they can strike any coast at any time. If one forms close to the shore, the shaking of the earth and a loud roar may warn of its approach. But when a tsunami forms across the ocean, it can take hours to reach the shore, enough time to warn people to move to higher land. Over the past 20 years, NOAA has developed DART, a real-time monitoring system that provides data for forecasting tsunamis. The DART systems have been deployed in earthquake-prone areas throughout the ocean, including the Pacific and Indian basins. A DART system combines a surface buoy and a sensor on the ocean floor. This sensor detects changes in water pressure and seismic activity and transmits the data back to the surface. If these changes indicate a tsunami may form, the buoy signals an alert via satellite to the tsunami warning centers in Alaska and Hawaii. Back at the centers, scientists plug the data into pre-existing models. These models predict the height, the arrival time, and the coastal locations that the tsunami will hit. Watches and warnings are issued to the affected communities so preparations can begin. Today, 47 DART stations are positioned all around the world, ready to detect and warn coastal communities about the next potential tsunami. With the DART system and tsunami warning centers in place, we are now better prepared to predict a killer wave before it strikes.
December 26, 2004. What began as an undersea earthquake in the Indian Ocean ended as the most deadly tsunami in recorded history, with nearly 240,000 lives lost. This was a devastating wake-up call to coastal communities and tsunami research. Prior to this event, only 6 of NOAA's Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunami, or DART, buoys were in place. Scientists could only predict tsunami arrival times, not flood potential. And there was not a global tsunami warning system. Today, 10 years later, we can tell a different story. U.S. and international coastlines are far better prepared for such a catastrophe, thanks in large part to research and technology developed at the NOAA Center for Tsunami Research at Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory. NOAA's DART array is now complete, with 39 buoys operated by the National Weather Service's National Data Buoy Center. Along with 21 international buoys, this array can measure a tsunami wave as small as 1 centimeter in the open ocean and provide these data in real time to forecast when a tsunami may hit the coast and how much flooding there will be. NOAA scientists and engineers are currently testing the 4th-generation DART buoy that will be able to measure local tsunamis as well as distant ones. Flooding forecast models incorporate local topography and historical tsunami data in order to more accurately predict exactly how a tsunami might behave when it reaches shore. NOAA has 75 site-specific models that can provide high-resolution flooding forecasts for effective response and mitigation during a tsunami event. NOAA has gathered data from every tsunami since 2004 to improve its forecast models. Today, it operates the world's only real-time tsunami flooding forecast system using DART data to accurately compute flooding forecasts. The NOAA Tsunami Warning Centers make tsunami data available on the internet and issue advisories, watches, and warnings through the Emergency Alert System and via NOAA weather radios. While it is impossible to prevent a tsunami, we are now much better prepared to detect them and predict their paths and impacts, so those in coastal communities can take the steps necessary to safely protect themselves.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, some changes from yesterday evident on here. The heavier ice, the white, dropped under the category that makes it that color, so it's now all blue here. And actually, I was told there's areas of open water along the Arctic coast here and even north of the Barrier Islands, quite an area that's not showing up here on this scale of the chart. And so opening up and that trend will continue for the next several days. Moving on to the coastal water forecast, southeast 15 to 20 on the south coast, diminishing to east 10 on the north coast. Seas not bad, 4 to 5 feet, and winds at about 10 knots from the south-southeast for the inside waters with seas pretty slight. And that holds through Tuesday, call it variable 10 for the inside waters of the panhandle there. But small craft advisories coming into the picture now with that system to the south. It's going to pull the clouds and showers and moisture up into the southern area. So 25 knots out of the east, 7-foot seas. North to northeast 10 to 15, north side there with seas 4 to 6 feet. Prince William Sound, northeast to 10, slight seas tomorrow. And south 10 for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Become northeast to 20 here for the west side, down across the Barren Islands. Kamishak Bay northeast at 10, Cook Inlet southerlies at 10 to 15 knots, seas 3 feet. And those become northwest at 10 on Tuesday with seas at about 2 feet, northwest 10 for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay 3 to 4 foot seas, and northwest at 10 also for the North Gulf Coast with 3 to 4 foot seas, light winds, light seas, slight seas here for Prince William Sound. And for the Alaska Peninsula, west northwesterlies 15. 4 to 5 foot seas, west 15 for Bristol Bay, and from Kessel Cape to Sitkinak, a little brisker, about 20 knots out of the northwest, and we got small craft advisories, northwesterlies there, east side of Kodiak Island, at 25 knots with northeast winds at 15 for Shelikof Strait. And then for Tuesday, 10 knots out of the northwest for Kodiak, so real light winds coming up for Tuesday, 2 to 3 foot seas. And the Alaska Peninsula, west-northwest 15, seas 4 feet with 15-knot winds here, Castle Cape to Sitkinak. Strongest winds will be found in Bristol Bay out of the northwest, 20 knots, seas 4 feet. Fox Islands, west-northwest at 15, 4 to 5 foot seas, light winds here for the Aleutians. Out of the south for Adak and Atka at 10 knots with 4 foot seas, gradually increasing to 20 knots out in the western zone there from the south. And then on Tuesday, that stronger system coming in, that looks like some gale force winds are going to show up here with that front out in advance of it. In the narrow band there west of Kiska-Ramchitka Island, but 40 knots, seas building 17 feet, 30 knot winds there to the east or to the west of Adak at 30 with 10-foot seas. Otherwise, central Aleutians winds gradually picking up 15 to 20, and probably won't see much of an increase until Tuesday night. Otherwise, northwest 10 to 15 for the Fox Islands. Southwest coast, west winds 15 knots. Same thing for the Preble off St. Matthew Island, about 20 knots. South 15 in Norton Sound with southwest winds for St. Lawrence Island. And then on Tuesday, southwest 20 there for St. Lawrence Island, west-southwest 15 for the coast, and southwest 15 for the Pribilofs. 20-knot winds continue for St. Matthew Island, with those seas running at about 6 feet. And then for the Arctic coast, east 25, an easy forecast here. Small craft advisories for all the areas, 5 to 6 foot seas. Cape Beaufort all the way down to the Bering Strait south at 20 with 4 to 5 foot seas. Outlook for Tuesday, those diminish to 15 knots in that area, east 15 on the western coast. Small craft advisories continue as those easterlies, 25 to 30 knots, continue to blow from demarcation point all the way over to the central coast with 5 to 7 foot seas. For tonight, again, dry up here with the northern interior, northeast interior, but some moisture to this frontal boundary that's not very strong at all will slip on up into the northwest there, bring a chance of some light rain. And then also this trough dropping down from the north and northeast around a high center that's off the chart up there over the Arctic with the temperatures down lower to mid-30s. Whatever precipitation falls has a chance of falling in the form of snow, but whatever does fall will be quite light. Just lower flying conditions will be the result with a fog. Showers scattered across the Copper River Basin. Rain mainly southern Kenai Peninsula, southern Cook Inlet, about Fognak drying out along the southwest coast. Another trough bringing more showers or more rain and low clouds into the southwest coast. And for tomorrow, sunny over the Panhandle. Outlook for Tuesday, rain moves into the south.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.